Hello, I'm Harold Sexson, and welcome to the 2020 Virtual West Coast Dowsers Conference. I'm talking to you from my Arizona domed house, as you can see kind of in the background, the curve there. And today we're going to be talking about 10 essential oils that will help in many ways. And maybe if you have a medicine cabinet that you have these 10 in, you could use them for almost everything that goes on in normal everyday problems that go on, as long as it's not too serious. And we're going to start out to begin with the kind of ever famous or most famous oil, lavender. Lavender has many, many different properties. Of course, it's antibacterial, it's antiviral, it's antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory, and also it works very well on burns. In fact, that's how lavender kind of came to its most famous beginning. Was somebody had burned themselves badly, and they stuck their hand in a bunch of essential oil, and it was lavender, of course, and it seemed to heal it very quickly. So that became a very famous story for lavender. Lavender has about 500 different variants that exist in the world, and there's only a couple of them that are more commonly used, and that's Lavandula angustifolia, and also lavender, spiked lavender, which is also common. Spiked lavender is not as common as regular lavender, but spiked lavender is usually used for respiratory problems, sometimes sinus cavities, things like that, where general lavender is used for everything from trying to go to sleep at night to just being relaxed for the day. I mean, an example is my wife. When she had a very tense job, she used to put lavender in her lotion in the morning to put on her legs to keep kind of calms for the day. Really specialty lavender is sometimes called high altitude lavender, which is done at a very high elevation. People consider this a premium. Most lavender today comes from almost everywhere in the world. Years ago, it used to be French lavender was kind of the name to fame. But through the years, that's kind of, it's there, but it's not predominant like it was. There's a great deal of lavender grown in the U.S. Nowadays, and because it grows anywhere where it's reasonably moist. It does not grow very well in real dry, arid climates like down in Arizona. There are some varieties that do, but this isn't angustifolia. So, and also each of them has because they're so hybrided, each of them has a little different appearance to it. In other words, the flowers, instead of being like you see in the picture, some of them you would not recognize that as the picture is shown. The picture shown is angustifolia, which is again the one we use for most oils. The production of lavender is usually by distillation. Some people have done it in other ways. However, the odor and the smell of the lavender, other than being distilled, does not smell the same, and it is not as pleasant at all. I one time bought some because I wasn't looking at what I was doing, and I didn't notice that it was not distilled normally, and it definitely was not normal lavender. Also, the hydrosol of lavender, which is when you distill it, the oil floats to the top, and underneath that is the water. And the distillate also can be used to calm people down. Some people use it as a spray, like even on their face. It does not taste very well if you spray it in your mouth. And the odor of it is not as pleasant as lavender, the oil is. In fact, it kind of smells like spoiled lavender oil, but it isn't. It's the distillate. So if you'd want to try that sometime and you don't mind the difference in smell, it is effective and it's very, very low cost. So you can get it very easily that way. Okay, why don't we move on to chamomile? Chamomile, there's two major types of chamomile. There's about 300 different types of chamomile, but the two major ones are chamomile, like Roman or English chamomile, which are the same plant, which is shown in the picture here. And also there's German chamomile, which is a dark blue color and has azulines in it. And it's used a little differently, but we're going to talk about English or Roman chamomile. A lot of people use this as they use lavender sometimes on their pillow at night, so it's easier to go to sleep. But it also has an anti-inflammatory. Some people use it as a digestive aid. It is a relaxant, obviously, and sometimes it's used for PMS and in some cases even headache relief. Most chamomile that's commercially available comes from usually Europe, even though it's grown in many other countries of the world. Europe seems to be the headquarters for chamomile. You can get it. It's very, very expensive, and the reason for that is the very, very small amount of oil that's in the chamomile itself. I had distilled some chamomile at one time, and I had 5 big trash bags full of it. It took me a long time, a couple days to distill it, and I ended up with a 5 milliliter bottle, which gives you an idea of how much oil is in the chamomile. So that's the reason for the large expense, has to do with the quantity of oil and how long it takes to do it. Sometimes people use chamomile even to calm down babies because it's safe, as well as lavender is safe to use on infants as long as they're at least a few months old. I wouldn't suggest it on a newborn, but it is okay for everything else. Some people have used chamomile because of the anti-inflammatory, have used it on joints and things for that aspect of it. There are other oils I think are more effective for that. If you have arthritis or whatever, that are a little stronger than this, and also with the expense of this makes this a kind of a premium product, but very effective for what it does. Okay, let's move on to marjoram. People call it majoram, which is not the common name, but I have heard people use that. And like all oils, it's also anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, and obviously you've used marjoram in cooking, so you know what it smells like. It smells exactly the same as the oil. And if you're cooking and using marjoram, you only need to use about 1 drop in whatever you're cooking, because each drop of the oil, just like almost all oils, is roughly a pound of herbs. So therefore, you want to use it very cautiously. Otherwise, your food will end up tasting like marjoram and not what you intended. It can also be used on bruises and headaches, sometimes used interchangeably with lavender, because some people like the smell of this much better than lavender. And there are other types of lavender. There's tea tree smelling oils also that fit into this category. But probably the major use of marjoram would be anti-inflammatory and also for headaches. Some people use it for bruises. It does work effectively for that. And digestive, again, remembering the 1 drop is a pound of herbs. If you're using it for a digestive aid, only use, like I say, 1 drop. The hydrosol, or the distillate, that's when they're making this, smells just exactly like marjoram smells, and also can be used and is very low cost as well. All right, let's move on to rosemary. One of my favorites. I grow it here at my house myself, not for distillation, but just because I like it. One of the places that's used a lot is in hair products because it cuts down on dandruff and also it stimulates hair growth. So if you have some existing shampoo, it's some nice organic shampoo, you might want to add some dandruff uh, carefully or hair growth by adding this to your shampoo. It does help on varicose veins. Usually that's a topical that's used where it's used. And that same aspect of varicose veins is the circulatory tonic. It helps circulation. So therefore, varicose veins is usually has to do with a circulatory problem. It is a decongestant. So if you think you're coming down with some sort of a cold or a flu, you can use that to help break it up. It's a little more tolerant if you put a drop in your mouth. It's a little more tolerant to taste. It still does not taste well, but it works very well. And also you can use it for pain relief, used as a topical. Okay, moving on to tea tree, also a very famous oil because it's in the Melaleuca family of oils. Antifungal is probably the #1 name to fame for tea tree oil because it does get rid of fungus and mold. It's also antibacterial. It's also antiviral as well as so it works for almost all the different categories of critters that can come around. Many people use it on cold sores because it helps them heal quickly. And I've known several people that have used it for age spots. You have to use it for an extended period of time. You have to put it on the age spots about twice a day, and needs to go on for at least a month or maybe more before you start seeing it fading away. It will work, but it's not quick because you're changing those tissues. Also, respiratory wise, you can either put a couple drops on your hands and rub your hands together and put them up to your face and breathe in. As well as I've known people who, as long as you're not chemically sensitive to it, is actually putting in a little carrier oil and rubbing it on their chest occasionally to have some congestion. It works well for that. And that's one point I want to make about all oils is some people have allergies to some specific oils. Each oil itself has depending on the oil, between 100 and 300 subcomponents to that oil. So you may have an allergy to one of those subcomponents. So it doesn't really matter if it's organic or not organic. Either way, if you have an allergy to that particular component, it will show up. One of the ways to check for this is if you have an oil you haven't used before, is to put a drop on your wrist and put a Band-Aid over it for a day and see if you get any reddening. If you get reddening, that means you have an allergy to that particular oil. So you may want to try another oil. Since there's so many different oils to choose from, it's very easy to find another one that would be as effective as the one you were trying. All right, let's move on. Okay, frankincense. Again, there's many different types of frankincense. There's 5 common ones. In one of my blends I call Balance, I put in 4 different types of frankincense to get kind of a combination of all the different types. Frankincense or Boswellia carteri is considered the most well-known. It's used for anti-tumoral or degeneration. It's been very effective for that. Many people have got over those type of conditions by obviously changing their diet, exercise, and doing the frankincense, usually a couple drops a couple times a day in the mouth. You can use it as a topical as well. However, if you put it internally, it affects the immune system. It seems like a little more effectively than putting it on topically, even though it will be absorbed through the skin. Many facial products use frankincense. they usually use one of the other frankincense, although some people use Carteri. Carteri is a little more expensive than the other types. And some of the types are very resinous, so they're very gooey. So if it's used in something and they use one of the other types of frankincense, they may have, 0.1%. In other words, very, very low, so you don't notice the tackiness. It's also an expectorant, so it helps in terms of cleaning things out. And many people talk about induces happiness, and I'm really not sure on that, whether it has to do with the chemistry or the fact that people have smelled frankincense for much of their lives, even when they were infants sometimes. And therefore, there's an assimilation of that feeling of happiness that goes with it. And it's somewhat of a growth stimulant. And it's a growth stimulant only for positive growing things. In other words, it doesn't promote degeneration growth. So it's rather miraculous in that respect, in that it, works so well. Also, there is, excuse me, a hydrosol of frankincense that's available, and it smells like frankincense and also is low cost. Some people like to use that as a spray on their face. It's a kind of an anti-aging on your face. And the smell, if you get it in a hydrosol, does go away, but it takes, I would say, an hour or two before that overall scent seems to fade. All right, let's continue on. Peppermint, everybody's favorite oil, or at least peppermint candy is anyway. By the way, I might add that peppermint, when you buy it in candy form, it does have peppermint oil in it, but it's been redistilled several times so that all of the, how would I say, other components that are normally in peppermint are really not there anymore. So eating candy canes will not make you healthy. And it's very good digestive aid in general. But again, using a drop or maybe two at a time. You can do it usually before, if you're going to do it at all, do it before a meal, usually around a half an hour. And also putting it on, again, a drop or two in your hands and rubbing your hands together. And breathing it in through your nose will help clear up sinuses and dilate those cavities. It's a good antiseptic as well. It's a decongestant. So if you have any lungs or throat decongesting problems, you can use that. And some people put it on their stomach, rub it on as a topical to stimulate them to be more awake. But there is about 5% of people who, when they use this on their stomach, it acts just the opposite, called the idiopathic response. And when this happens, it puts you to sleep instead of wakes you up. So if you try that and you get the opposite response, you'll know that. I mean, again, it's not extremely common, but there is a portion of the population that it is a relaxant instead of a stimulant. Because this is an adaptogen, much like lavender is, it adapts to the conditions that are out of balance. So that's why we get that kind of a response. All right, let's move on to eucalyptus. Eucalyptus, there are many, many different types of eucalyptus. Some of them can be taken internally. Some of them are poisonous if taken internally. So you need to look up, if you're going to use just broad eucalyptus, you need to look up, if you're going to try to attempt to take it orally, you better look up the specifics of that particular type of eucalyptus. In my company, I carry 5 different kinds, but there are many more than that. The one I don't carry is called Smitty, which is also a popular one, but since I have so many others, I don't really stock that. It works very well as a decongestant, and for most people, you can put it directly on the chest to help decongest. But again, you need to check to make sure that you don't have any allergy to that particular one. Eucalyptus used to be used in Vicks Vapo Rub, but in current generations, like most things that are over the counter, they use a synthetic now that's a menthol, so they don't have to put up with expenses of buying the oil. And then it's also antiviral, which works very well if you have any kind of cold or flu going on. It's antibacterial as well, like most oils are, and it's a stimulant, and it's an antifungal. So it works. Most people can take this directly. The type of eucalyptus that is most popular is called globulus. And you'll see this sometimes in health spas and steam rooms and things like that. There are other types that are used. Radiata is another one that's common, but generally globulus is by far the most common use in most gyms and places like that. Plus, by using that in the gym, they're helping disinfect the gym at the same time and also get rid of odors as well. All right, let's move to bergamot. Bergamot, even though it's not grown very often in the US, it's generally grown in Italy is the most common place that bergamot's available. It is a fruit. It's just not a common fruit that we see in the US. It's very similar to an orange in appearance. If you ever had Earl Grey tea, that's the flavor that's in Earl Grey tea is bergamot. So again, the standard kind of anti-inflammatory is very common for almost any oils. And it is used as an uplifter or an antidepressant. So it's good for depression, as most citrus oils are. Some people also use lemon in this respect as well. But bergamot is just has a more full flavor than lemon does. It's also a stress reducer. And sometimes you'll see it used in skincare products. One of the things about being in skincare products is it's usually, if you look at the contents, they must be listed in how much is in the particular item. So with bergamot, it would be way, way, way down in the mix because it's phototoxic, which means after you put it on your skin, if you go out in the sun, it becomes toxic and could burn the skin in some situations. So if it's way, way down in the mix, that's probably not going to happen. But that's the reason you don't see it up towards the top. And if you use it yourself for skincare, I would only use it if you were going to be inside for the day. Usually within a couple hours, this dissipates away. But just to be safe, if you're going to be inside, it's better. So that's another thing about bergamot. Bergamot is grown in several countries, but again, as I said to begin with, Italy seems to be the main source of most bergamot. So that would be a good choice. And occasionally, if you see a hydrosol of bergamot, it smells pretty much like bergamot. And it is also, if you ever get the hydrosol, it is a little less phototoxic than the oil is. But again, if I was using even the hydrosol, I would stay inside for at least a couple hours if you were spraying it on you. All right. And geranium. Everybody loves geranium. Smells great, at least to most people. There are about 700 different varieties of geranium. Generally for the oil, there are 2 or 3 different geraniums that are used. There's some in Africa that are a little different. But most geranium, again, mostly comes from Europe for the most part. And it's also antifungal, anti-inflammatory again, and it eases nervous tension. So it's used as a relaxant as well. Many people, I've seen them smell it and they just go, ah, they're relaxed by breathing geranium. And maybe it's because of the geranium itself, or it's because it's bringing back memories of a kid going to grandma's house and smelling the geranium plants. It also is good on the face for acne, helps dry it up, works very good. And also this is another oil that can be used for varicose veins. So, and sometimes when you're doing things for varicose veins, if you want to make a combination of 2 or 3 or 4 oils that are specifically helpful for either circulation or varicose veins, you get a synergistic effect, which makes it more effective when you use it. And again, if you're using it on varicose veins, usually you would put it in an oil, some kind of a carrier of some sort. So when you put it on, much like I was talking about my wife and the lotion with the lavender, you would put it on in that respect. As long as it's at least 3 to 5% of what the lotion or carrier oil is, it will still work fairly effectively. So that might be another choice you might take. And that's 10 oils that we used for this presentation. We could have gone on for much longer because there are tons and tons of oils. A lot of times, if you don't like the smell of one oil, you might try another one that does pretty much the same thing. And if you're using oils, particularly in the bergamot, you might keep those in the refrigerator because citrus oils tend to lose their top notes at room temperature over a period of time. So, and if you do that, you'll find they last and last and last. The other oils don't really need refrigeration unless you just want to put them in to be safe. So thank you for listening, and happy oil days.
Thank you, Harold. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for joining the conference. If you want to show your webcam and unmute yourself on your side, you're self-muted.
There.
There we go. Let's see. I have my video up here. So Harold, if you would like to turn on your, I can hear you, Harold. That's great.
Okay, good.
Want to turn your webcam on?
Okay.
There we go.
Good.
It's kind of happening here. So thank you so much for a fascinating lecture. This is always very interesting. People were talking in the questions about chamomile and how you were talking about calming the children. So that was wonderful. You say that frankincense is a growth stimulant. What would you be stimulating the growth of? Is it done topically?
If you'd be putting on topically, which is the reason it's used in some skincare products, it helps the external dermal tissue.
Okay, terrific. Someone was asking if this is available as a handout. If I have your permission, I could always put it in, create it as a PDF file, and then load it in as a handout right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that. Okay, so please talk longer answering questions. I've heard that placing essential oils in the belly button improves absorption. Could that be better than by mouth?
Particularly on children or chronically ill people, I usually suggest the belly button way of doing it. Since that's your primal attachment to the earth, it's absorbed very quickly. So that I would recommend that. Sure, that's not the only place you can use it, but yeah, it would be a great way to use it.
Okay. Can you suggest a good oil or combination oil to repel ticks?
For ticks, I don't have anything right off the top of my head for ticks, but I realize in the Midwest and East, that ticks are a considerable problem and very, very. I mean, there's several things if the tick have bitten you. In other words, to work on it that way. But for the repelling, I would have to physically look up. I have about 100 reference books that I'm sure I could find something, but I don't have one right off the top of my head.
Okay. Topical oil for joints and trigger finger.
I'm going to sound like a little bit of a commercial on this one, but I have something called Pain Exit, and it's specifically a blend of oils that includes helichrysum, which is very good for nerves. It's in that blend. I've used it for years. Many people have purchased it over and over again, so I know it's fairly effective for that. but it's Pain Exit. It's on my website. It's easy to find.
Okay. I find geranium oil in a carrier oil is a great mosquito repellent.
Yes, yes, that's true. You don't necessarily have to use citronella to get an effective mosquito repellent. Yeah, geranium would be great. I've made a blend a few times where I've mixed in mints, as well as geranium, as well as citronella and things to make up a blend. That's not a standard blend on my website, but I have made it.
Okay. Um, how is it best to take oregano oil?
That is a very, very called hot oil, and it's best to do oregano oil just like put a little bit on the end. What the way I use is put on the end of my finger, stick my tongue out, rub it back and forth, and then rub your tongue back and forth, and it will burn a bit, but it was very effective in getting, if you're just in the very beginning of coming down with something. If you're taking it internally, I would not suggest any more than roughly a drop. Um, and if you're going to put it in a gel tablet or something, you need to fill it with coconut oil and put, the drop or so in there. The reason for that is that if the mucus in your stomach is exceptionally low, which of course nobody knows what level it's at, oregano oil can actually cause ulceration, and ultimately in some people it has caused death. Uh, Very effective, but you don't need much of it.
Okay. What's peppermint oil good for? And can you elaborate on that?
Oh goodness, what's peppermint oil besides people just generally liking the smell of the uplifting use of peppermint? I mean, you can even use peppermint on scrapes and things like that as well. It will burn, of course, like any oil will, but the uses of peppermint are almost unlimited. I mean, another unusual use I use peppermint for. Since my house is in the ground, I have a patio, which means the roof of that patio sits on the ground. So I can't really do anything about that. So what I get is I get rats up in the little bit of space, I guess you'd call it, not really an attic, but an attic space. And when the rats are in there, what I do is I take peppermint oil and put it inside a syringe and inject it through the wall board in the ceiling. And they really, really do not like peppermint oil. Most critters, ants, insects do not like peppermint. And then I have had to move to the opposite end of the wall, like 15 feet away. And so I drill a little hole over there and do it again. And they're pretty well gone it works for about a year. And sometimes they come back and we do it again.
Okay. I have just uploaded your PowerPoint presentation into the handouts, and so if people can just go over to their control panel, and they can download it. It's in a PDF file, so that it will be. I'm sorry.
I just said thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Sure, sure. Um, and I'm just trying to find the question box again. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay. What came after frankincense?
After frankincense was actually peppermint.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. On the list. Okay, so Claudia, you should just go over to the handouts and just you can get all that information there.
Ah,
Hi
very
there.
good.
Great presentation, Mr. Sexson. I just looked at your website and say this Tune to You essential oil. Do you use
Yes,
dowsing to determine what to use? Can you tell us more? Thank you.
sure. That's actually a really, really good question. I've been doing Tune to You for probably 17 years. And the way I do it is if somebody requests it because if you do it on the web, it asks a bunch of questions. So what I do is I look at your response to those, then I douse, then I go through every single oil I have and see how many oils correspond to you and the question that's being asked for that thing. So it could be mental, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual. And actually, I douse for more oils than I have commercially available, because once in a while there's one I just have a small amount of that seems to fit in there. So I do include that. And then when I send it to you, it's a 5 milliliter bottle. That's the kind of normal small size essential oil bottle. Then I send you a list of all the oils that are in that. And they vary. Sometimes there's 10 or 12, sometimes there's 5 or 6. I never know how many. I think the most I've ever had is 24. But and then I keep that formula on file. So if you really, really like it, it seems to be effective, and you want to do it again, you can order it again. And if you order it the second time, you need to tell me if you're ordering it from the website. If you're ordering again, you get the normal size bottle, the 12 milliliter bottle on the second shot, because I don't have to do a couple hours worth of research in order to put it together.
Okay. How would you use these to make a blend to boost the immune system?
If I was dousing, what I would do is ask exactly that question.
They're asking, is a COVID preventative. Okay. Well, we might
Uh,
not want to discuss that.
I do have another function on my website, which you won't find anywhere else on anybody else's website, and it is a quantum function. So in a way, you could call it a mechanical dowsing, and it says select oil, one of the tabs at the top there, and you go down and you put in your name and your birth date, and it will pick oils for you. And I used an engine of somebody else's program to do that. I got permission to do it. What I would suggest, if you want to do that, so you could pick out your own tune to you if you want to, or what you could do is have it pick, and you can move down, so you can move up to 7 or 8 oils if you wanted to, and you could douse for those oils to see, oh, would these be best for what I'm asking, my question about, or my health. And if you wait a little while and do it again, you'll get a different answer, because it's to the moment. So come back even a few minutes later, you will get a different list than what you had the first time. So it's a fun function to do. I recommend it for people, particularly dousers, because you can get a choice of different things, and then you can look those oils up on the list of oils on the whole website, and you can see what those oils do and go, it's really well, or that's too far away from what I'm thinking of. So so it's a fun function to do, and it's kind of neat to have something that nobody else has.
Absolutely. How would marjoram be used for bruises?
You would put it directly over the bruise itself, usually directly, as long as you don't have an allergy to it.
Okay. Are there
You
any
know,
oh, sorry.
a couple times a day at least, but go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Are there any cautions or contradictions to be concerned?
Um, well, other than the allergies on standard oils, I would say probably not in terms of topical. In terms of taking things internally, yes. Not only the quantity of an oil, but some oils, if taken internally, cause they're very, very toxic.
Okay.
So you need to be careful to make sure. There's a category called GRAS, GRAS, which means generally recognized as safe. And if you're going to even consider anything internally, which I don't recommend hardly at all, but if you're going to do it internally, I would look up to make sure that specific oil is GRAS safe, which
Okay.
is recognized worldwide.
Okay, terrific. Age spots, tea tree oil. Just say a little more about this, please.
Yeah, the best thing to do if you're going to do that is probably put it on a Q-tip, because that way on the little European oil bottles, it's very easy to get a Q-tip just enough on there without dripping it all over and wasting it. And just put it over those age spots. You can do them on your face as well as hands and arms. But like I say, when I said in the talk is you need to do it for a pretty good period of time. I would say at least a month, a couple times a day. So you can do it in the morning and evening, and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Rosemary, eucalyptus, lemongrass, citronella, thyme, Thyme,
Yes.
um, to make it release. Hmm, that doesn't really. Does that make any sense to you?
Pain relief, maybe?
I'm sorry. It's all the sentence says is rosemary, eucalyptus, lemongrass, citronella, and then thyme to make it release. Maybe someone was answering a question from prior, so my apologies.
Okay.
How many of these can be grown in the United States and what areas? I'm in central North Carolina.
Well, actually, most of the common ones that we recognize can be grown in the U.S. The reason most oils come from either third world countries or Europe or India, that's the other country, is number one, they have very, very cheap labor, third world countries. So for particularly like things like chamomile that only have a very, very low yield, and roses, which have a very low yield, melissa, which has a very low yield, you need a huge, huge, huge volume. So unless you're selling it for an astronomical price, which of course companies do, you go to one of these other countries that can grow it, because like for India, it depends. If you're in northern India, there would be different oils grown than would be in southern India, as an example. And
Correct.
likewise, when I was talking about helichrysum as a flower, which is the helichrysum that helps regrow nerve cells, those are generally grown in southern Europe, Serbia, several southern European countries. The other one is helichrysum leaf. Helichrysum leaf grown in Madagascar, and it's a completely different plant. It smells almost like eucalyptus. It does have a little bit of ability on the nerve cells, but very, very much cheaper than Helichrysum italicum, which is the main nerve type oil. So,
You mentioned geranium for varicose veins. What other oils would you combine with it?
well, you could put marjoram with it for one. You could put rosemary with it for another. Um, and I do, if somebody comes to me and says, I want, they call me personally, not on the website, but they call me and say, hey, I would like a blend of these specific oils. I will mix those for you and give you a price that's somewhere in the middle of whatever the cost of those are. And that way you can save some money as buying half a dozen oils if you don't already have them. Also, one other point I was going to make is we import our own oils. I do not buy them uh, from sub dealers here in the US. So most of them are I import from other countries. So that way I get to know which ones are what. And also from different years, sometimes somebody will say, well, this doesn't smell exactly like it did, some I bought 5 years ago. And don't forget, our earth is ever changing. So in the place that it was grown, they could have got more or less water than they had before, shorter season, variables. So I've noticed some oils vary from time to time. And I do a bunch of energetic things to the oils themselves, so that they usually when I get them and I douse, I usually find they have around a 3 foot to 6 foot field around them. And after I do my energizing, they usually have around a 40 to
It's
50
off.
foot diameter. So,
It's off. Okay. Any oil you could recommend for hand palm psoriasis?
hmm, um, you could start out with doing something that was more a carrier oil, like sunflower oil or something like that. Um, Usually, psoriasis, using an oil, it's not going to the source of what it is. Um, Personally, I would go more towards homeopathy, find some homeopathic um, items that you could take, ingest, do it that way. If it's real irritating, you could also get which is really popular right now, a lot of lotions have arnica in them already, but that's not going to work on the cause of it. It's just going to make it a little less inflamed than it already is.
What do you use for carrier oils?
On my website, I have several carrier oils. The one I like the best that is probably macadamia nut, and that's not very common. It does have a little macadamia nut smell, but it never spoils. So what I look for at carrier oil is two things. Number one is what's in that carrier oil. Secondly, how long will that carrier oil go before it starts going rancid? And almond oil in particular is used in a great deal of different other formulas that people have. I do not use almond oil simply because in 6 months or so, it will start to turn on you. Once it turns, it's best to be thrown away.
Okay, let's see what else is. What's a blend of oils for fly spray?
Fly spray. I have
Fly,
made some,
like a fly, keep flies away.
yes, I have made some blends sometimes for people, particularly with horses, when to keep,
Hmm.
the flies away from the horses' faces. And I don't remember, it's been 3 or 4 years since I've done that. It does have mints in it, but the trouble with mints is you don't want them around your eyes because it'll make your eyes water. So that terms, you need to find something that's not too stimulating to mucous membranes. But on the other hand, the flies don't like it. And I would have to look up that formula. I don't recall off the top of my head what I came together for.
Okay, let's see what else is there. I put the PDF up. PDF. What oil would you use to deter ants in the house?
Peppermint first.
Okay. All right.
Also, another
Okay.
item on ants also is ants really dislike any kind of soap.
They're dirty animals,
Yeah.
aren't they?
What happens is their exoskeleton on their bodies, once you get soaked with water, they don't have any protection. So they
Oh,
so they can actually drown. If you just spray water on them, they float. So they go,
oh,
yeah, great, thanks for the water.
wow. Okay. So then someone's also saying peppermint is great for headaches too.
Yes.
And okay, that's one.
Yeah, I have a
So
headache blend that I do have different types of mint, as well as some other oils, um, work on headaches. But so peppermint works for you, then use peppermint.
okay. All right, good. People are picking up your handout that we put up there.
Oh, great.
And let's see what else. There's actually quite a few questions here, so this is great if you have time.
Sure.
Um, let's see. What carrier oils do you recommend? Can you
Yeah,
use
and that's
EOs without mixing with an oil? What's that? Is that olive? Not olive. What's an EO?
essential oil.
Oh, okay. Can you use essential oils without mixing with an oil?
Hmm. I'm not quite sure what the question is. In terms of carrier oils in general, like on my website, I have some carrier oils. And if you're using something that you want to do antifungal or something like that, then I'd recommend something really, really sticky to smell. It's neem oil, and neem oil works really effectively on funguses and things, but it's gross smelling.
Okay. Oh, goody. Um, let's see. Someone is asking for your phone number again, but that's on the handout. But I can always, why don't you, can you recite your phone number? I can put it up here in the chat.
Sure, it's 480-998-9055.
Okay, I'm putting that in the chat here for everybody. 480-998-9055. Okay.
Yeah, and that's in Arizona. So don't forget, we never change time. So we're
Oh my goodness. Let's see. We answered that one. Are there any of the oils you mentioned today that could possibly be dangerous for pets if we use it and they accidentally consume it?
yes. Dogs and cats. Well, let me explain. Dogs, there's a few oils that are toxic to them that aren't toxic to us. The cats, in particular, are almost all oils are toxic to cats.
Okay.
I tell a story once where I had a lady who had a cat that she'd been hand feeding for like a year because its nose was all stopped up in it, so she would have to hand feed it. So I made up a blend and I sent it to her, and this has been several years ago, and I didn't tell her how to use it. So when she got it, she thought, well, just like humans, I'll put it on the paws of the cat and I'll put it on its ears. And that's what she did. And she didn't call me first, she just did it. And she said within an hour, the cat's nose was not plugged up at all. It was completely, completely cleared. However, the next day, the cat died.
Oh
So
my.
cats have a very, very limited ability of particularly their liver and digestive systems to handle anything that's overly toxic. And well, you say, well, they eat lots of rodents and things. Yes, but the reason they can get away with that is they have a very short digestive tract. So therefore, by the time those critters have started to putrefy, it's already out. It's out of their body. So um, cats have trouble with urinary things frequently. So on cats, if somebody asks me about cats, I usually just flatly turn them down. On dogs, I can look up and see sources that I have to see what things are, are okay for dogs. But dogs do have some things that are toxic to them that are not to us. So be careful.
Okay, someone's asking. Okay, for your website, I will put it out there. What do you recommend for leg cramps, arthritis, and migraines?
Wow, you're talking about three things that are opposite ends of the world. For leg cramps, I would recommend going to the health food store and buying yourself some Magphos. That's MAGPHOS at 30X. And whenever if you have them at a similar time, like when you go to bed or whatever, if you put 3 or 4 of those tablets underneath your tongue, it gets rid of leg cramps very well. Yeah, not an oil. It's a homeopathic.
Okay.
Arthritis, again, I would refer to my Pain Exit for that. And what was the third one? Headaches?
Headaches, migraines. Hang on, I was just trying to go through them all. Sorry about that. There's quite a few questions here, which is great. Was it headaches, migraines, and varicose? Was it varicose veins also? I hope the person types in again. Anyways, maybe they'll come back with it. I apologize. I have a commercial tick repellent with clove, geranium, peppermint, rosemary, cedarwood, spearmint, and cinnamon. Have only used it once. Smells good. What do you think?
Sounds great. Yeah, most critters don't like clove at all, but the only thing about clove as far as on you, some people have a sensitivity to clove, so you have to be kind of careful. As long as you don't have a sensitivity to it, yeah, and you don't mind the smell, it's
Okay.
great.
All right. I was trying to share my screen here so I could show people your website, but just tell it to me and I'll put it in there.
Okay, it's www.nature's oils, so it looks like nature soils,
Yeah.
.net.
.net. Okay. I'm gonna send it here, but I know somebody else was asking for it. All right. Let's see. Can you put the PDF up? I noticed that replays don't give us access to any files that have been given out during the live sessions, you can always contact me, and I can always send them to you. So just so you know that Harold's PDF file is up here. Let's see.
I use a,
Smithy. Sorry?
go ahead. I was going to
No, no.
say, selecting oils that I purchase. Speaking of dousing, I always douse before I order an oil because I
Okay.
have been burned a few times with getting oils that what you said it was and what it is not really the same. Anyway, you were asking a question.
Oh, no, that's fine. There's a thing that says Smithy is effective
Yes.
for use in small children. Okay. Let's see. There's people saying thank you. I noticed peppermint flavored toothpaste in candy or gum is very strong. It makes me burp. I'm not gonna say who asked that. It wasn't me. I know if you have a colostomy bag, it's good if you have eat peppermint. So, anyways, is there a reason why it would make her burp?
Well, there's a couple of things about oils also is um, talking about the way they work. Mostly we talk about the chemistry involved, of the oils. That seems to be I would say 99% of the interest in oils is the chemistry. But also another thing is when you breathe in, it goes directly into the limbic system, which is the center of the brain. And that's where all your memories are stored of all the other smells you've had in your
Did you make sure
lifetime.
that her videos? Oh, it's up there. Okay.
So sometimes, even if it's a
Put it in
synthetic
front.
oil, which I don't deal with, that even if it's a synthetic oil, the limbic system sometimes can be stimulated because it smells like, fresh baked cookies, even though that's not an oil. But nonetheless, it smells good. So it,
That smells good.
yeah.
Okay. What is thieves oil?
Okay, I make an equivalent of thieves. I started with thieves, and then what I did is a Petri dish analysis of what things it kills. So I've made something called Fresh Mouth. Fresh Mouth has some additional oils that are not in thieves that kill more of the bacteria in the mouth. And instead of copying their name, I decided to call it where it would be used most, and that's one drop on your toothbrush when you're brushing your teeth. So you would kill all the bacteria in your mouth, and it'll get rid of gingivitis and stuff as well.
Okay.
Toothpaste.
What is good for leg cramps? Take it internal or rub it on? I'm sorry, I missed the answer.
Okay. Um, if you were using Pain-X, that would be directly on the surface. The one I mentioned before was to get Magphos, which is a homeopathic, which you can get in any health food store. It's MAG, which stands for magnesium, PHOS, which stands for phosphate, and it's in 30C or 30X. And you just take some of those, 3 or 4 of them at a time. Don't eat or drink anything for 15 minutes on either side, and it will get rid of leg cramps.
Okay. Wow, there's a lot more. What was good for mouth gum infection?
Fresh Mouth.
Fresh mouth. Okay.
Oh, and one more comment on Fresh Mouth. I make a stronger version of Fresh Mouth called Mike's Blend, and it has everything that's in Fresh Mouth, including frankincense and oregano. So if you have severe infections, gum retraction, all of those things, you might consider Mike's Blend, but it is really, really strong. So
Okay.
I don't recommend that unless somebody really has a big problem.
Does your fresh mouth work on candida?
Yes.
Okay.
But change your
Frankincense.
diet. If you have severe candida, you might change your diet to get rid of everything that's sugar based.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my God. How can you say that? Frankincense. Is it okay to use 1 to 2 drops under the tongue? And is it safe to diffuse? EOs or your essential oils in a home with cats? You already said that's probably not the way to
Yeah, I've known people to do it, but I don't really have a recommendation. I'm leery of it. Cats, even at low levels, are really, really sensitive since they use their nose to
Yeah.
pretty well get around.
And then can all of these be used in diffusers or is it better on skin? Thanks for the handout. Okay, good.
Um, it depends on what you like. Most oils are effective at very, very low concentrations, so in a diffuser, they're okay. I believe almost every oil in there would be acceptable to use in a diffuser, but I don't think I'd probably want to diffuse oregano only because your nostrils and your nose are going to become very sore if you breathe very much oregano that's in the air, but it would kill everything.
There you go. You mentioned that some oils work synergistically with geranium for varicose veins. What other oils would you mix with geranium for this purpose?
I kind of answered that before, and I
Oh, you
mentioned
did? Okay.
geranium, marjoram, rosemary. I mean, a few others, but that's the ones off the top.
Okay. There we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What carrier oil has the longest shelf life?
And I'm back to my macadamia nut again.
Okay.
Coconut oil also lasts a long time as well, but
Okay.
anyway.
Okay. All right. And here, someone's asking for your website again, www.naturesoil.net. And I'm typing that in for them. Okay. Let's see. Frankincense. Okay to use 1 to 2 drops under the tongue?
Yes. I might say on frankincense carteri that I mentioned is the one that's had the most research done on it for anti-degenerative conditions. I've had other people use other frankincense that seems to be effective, but there's no research to back it up, but it seems to work. So.
When you talk about applying the oils to the skin, do you apply it directly or should they be diluted?
Couple things. It depends how sensitive your skin is. Personally, I use most of them direct, but I've had many people who, when they use it direct, their skin turns into a little red beet. So not so good. So you're going to have to kind of experiment yourself to see what the hot oils, definitely not directly on skin. In other words, you wouldn't want to put clove and oregano and cinnamon directly on your skin.
Okay. All right. Someone's saying rosemary is good for ticks.
Ah, okay.
Okay. You put tea tree oil and a carrier oil before you rub it on age spots.
You can use it direct.
Okay.
Unless you have a sensitivity to it.
All right. There we go. Let's see. Psoriasis is they're saying. Let's see. Let me see. Okay, and someone's asking for the website again. And here we go. Well, oh boy, lots and lots of questions here. And to clarify earlier, I didn't mean use frankincense under cats' tongues. So, okay.
Well, yeah, I got that.
Okay. Okay, someone's asking about getting the handouts. The handouts are on the control panel on the right where it says handouts. Click on the triangle, and then there'll be a drop-down menu, and it'll show it says Harold Sexson Top 10 Essential Oils WCC 2020. What's the best way to store essential oils in the refrigerator, or do they degrade badly? And then do they degrade badly in heat?
You want to keep them away from heat and light. That's the two enemies of oils. That's the reason they're in colored bottles, whether it's, 3 or 4 different colors that are used, but they're always in colored bottles. Personally, I like to keep them refrigerated if you have a big enough refrigerator without clogging up your whole refrigerator with bottles of oils. But the only ones that are critical on that are citrus oils, so grapefruit, lemon, orange, bergamot, yuzu, which I don't supply, but any of those, yes, would be best. It isn't that they go bad, they just don't smell like the original fruit did after they sit out for a year.
All right, I'm just typing some things in here. Some let's see.
Oh, one other thing on speaking of citrus oils, if citrus oils go bad, or in other words, don't smell like they originally did, you can use them in cleaning products. They're really, really good if you mix it with soap or other things you're mixing together, because it's antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral for the most part. So you don't have to throw them in the trash. You can use them in cleaning products.
Okay. All right. Do you douse oils for people?
I do. That's kind of what the tune to you thing is, but yeah, I can do individual ones too, I suppose.
Okay. And then a couple of people are asking again about diffusing essential oils in home with my kitty cats, but you said that that wasn't a good idea, right?
Not very good, no. There are a few books that are done on oils for dogs and cats.
Okay.
Few, not many.
Okay. Okay, 1 second. I need to answer a quick question here. But I'll have you talk. Let's see. That okay. On the website, how are oils chosen for the auto oil selector in birth dates?
It's a quantum function. It's an engine that it's used on another. It's used on another quantum biofeedback program. So that's how it's chosen. So what it does is you ask the universe basically, and what it's doing is giving you the choices that are available that are on my website. So it has nothing to do with astrology at all. People ask that question often.
I'm back. Sorry, we have another class that's starting right now.
Yes.
And so that's fine. Let's see. Okay, there's a. Okay, 1 second, Hal.
Okay.
Is jojoba oil good for a carrier oil?
Yes, it's very good for very, very similar to the skin itself. So jojoba would be an excellent carrier oil.
Okay. How do I get the iPads? I'm on my I'm on my iPad. Just if you have the control panel there, you should be able to see them and then download them. Okay. iPad, here we go. Okay. Is there an oil that would open up the pineal gland?
People have talked about that. I do quantum biofeedback. When I do that, I work on sometimes pineal gland. Lots of people have done oils where they put it on their third eye, is a way of doing that. And I've heard everything from peppermint or different other mints like spearmint, other things, because it tends to penetrate in. But I do not have any factual information on how well those work.
Okay. Magnesium phosphorus is tissue salt, homeopathic. Okay. Does fresh mouth stain teeth?
No, because you're only using one drop. And
Okay.
it's clear, or pretty close to clear.
What do you use for migraines?
I have a blend called Headache Blend. And if the migraine is just coming on, okay, it works very, very well. And you put it on the two temples, third eye, and the occipital in the back of the head. And it will usually negate it. But since headaches and migraines have like 20 different sources of where they come from, it's not always effective for everybody all the time. But I have had people who bought it over and over again, so I know that it works well. Also, if you put a drop of that on before you go to bed, get some really interesting dreams.
What was that? Which one again gives you interesting dreams?
The headache.
Oh, the headache one. Oh, okay. That's funny. That happens when I eat peanut butter before bed. Is there a good oil to control a cough?
Probably 20 different things in there in the list. Everything from, one I haven't mentioned is Ravinsara, is also rather eucalyptus-like, as well as all the eucalyptus, the helichrysum leaf. Could go on for quite a while for coughs.
Okay.
But, and what you would do is put a couple drops in your hands, breathe it in, or put it on a cotton ball or whatever and breathe it.
Okay. Is there an essential oil that would work as a toilet bowl cleaner to remove mineral deposits?
No, they're not acidic or base, they're oils. So therefore, you need to use, it'll smell nice, but you won't get rid of the deposits.
Okay. Okay, someone has spider veins around their right ankle that look like bruises and red rashes.
Yep.
What would happen? That's at the what you said earlier about geranium?
Yeah, the varicose veins stuff. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And then already okay. Insomnia. Do you have something for insomnia?
Insomnia, again, is one of those various causes of that. Number one, don't eat after like 6 o'clock in the evening. No TV an hour before you go to bed, or computers is an hour before you go to bed. Try to go to bed between 9 and 11 o'clock in the evening. And, and then chamomile, lavender, marjoram, any of those. If it's severe, there is valerian oil as well, which I do carry. But I don't advise valerian without going through every other thing first, because valerian many times for many people tends to have an after effect the next day where you feel groggy, you don't feel really tuned in very well. So.
Okay. All right. So I've been dispensing your website a whole bunch of times.
Thanks.
Psoriasis. Oh, someone's saying psoriasis, rosa, rubiginosa. Oh, that's okay.
Rhodacea, or that tends to be affected by digestion. One of the things also, speaking of psoriasis, sometimes it helps. I have a blend called Dr. G's. It's a doctor in Budapest that gave me this blend. What you do is a half an hour before you eat, you put 1 drop in a couple ounces of water and drink it. And then when you eat a half an hour later, what it does is all the digestive juices are stimulated, so you get better digestion. The results of that tend many variables. Some people have less constipation. Some people, they digest better. Some people don't burp. It could be lots and lots of digestive issues that can be. But I found it to be effective, and I would say 80 or 90% of the time they aid in digestion. Sometimes it'll cause rhodation things to be better.
Do you have an oil that's good for joints?
Again, I'm going to refer to Pain Exit.
Okay. How large is the field increase when I'm thinking it's your auric field, and not being specific here. After charging after charging oils, how wide does the field increase?
Okay, originally it's 3 to 6 feet, and afterwards it's 40 to 50 feet.
Okay.
Substantial.
That's quite substantial, absolutely.
And by the way, when I'm doing that, what I'm really doing is the essence of the oil itself, where the spirit of the oil is becoming more released and free of other constraints that were on it to begin with. So that's why it comes out.
Okay. Oh, someone's answering a question here. You can use without a carrier oil, but oils are hydrophilic, so post shower is good. Otherwise, they can cross the dermic barrier wall. Okay. I hate when that happens. Um,